Light her up.
I'm gonna click go live in 3, 2, 1. We're good.
Hello, and welcome to House to 20. I'm Justin, the DM, and we have a few people missing tonight, but we are going to try to finish our recap of our epic 7-year campaign. Doug is not with us, at least right now, and he plays Phidias, the drow. What is he? A drow
Shaman.
shaman, that's right.
And I'm Wes. I play Enceladus, a Vryloka half vampire, half human warlock.
And I'm Joe, and I play an assassin named Gers the Immortal.
I am Jake, and I play a human monk named Thrax, as well as a warforged paladin named Celestine.
And Jake 2 is also missing. He plays Rook, the Revenant Artificer.
And then I'm Jeremiah. I play Vakias, who is a Minotaur Druid.
So, we're going to, it's been a couple weeks since we have done our last episode, and so for those of you that are watching these back-to-back, this will be boring, but we're going to try to recap for ourselves what we talked about last time. I think we left off where everyone had helped Gers finish his assassin job at the festival, killing off the Reeve family, and Rook was the only one that was captured and managed to escape and ran through the woods back towards their house. And everyone made it back fine, and an Inquisitor showed up at the door early in the morning because there was a little bit of suspicion around all of you guys in the house there. And Gers sort of stepped forward. Well, before that, he sort of revealed to everyone that he was a changeling. And stepped forward and sort of went with the Inquisitor with every intention of not giving him what he wanted, and then leaving and disappearing. After that, the group, sort of, maybe, Joe, you agree or not agree, or?
I wouldn't say that Gers did not intend to cooperate, but yeah, he did. He wanted to play along. He wanted to try to make things right and take responsibility, but then when it came right down to it, he couldn't follow through.
The Inquisitor was doing like official Inquisitor stuff where he's basically saying like, hey, we need to follow procedure and we need to interrogate you and we need to take you down to the station, sort of thing. And he was following his script, and Gers was thinking that hey, this is, maybe I can talk my way out of this, and then it turned out that he couldn't talk his way out of it, and he had to magic his way out of it, right?
Do what he does, run away.
Did what he did, disappeared, ran away. And the heat was on Lord Albertus Quinnerin, which is the visage that Gers took in order to perform the assassinations. And so you guys sort of pegged everything on Albertus, and the Inquisitor kind of had only that lead left to pursue. And you guys decided to lay low, find a place to go, greener pastures for a little bit until the heat left. So you went to the 12, and Tankus said, okay, well, I guess we have to kind of help you guys out. And she got new identification papers and outfits, and gave you a infinite rail pass which is actually kind of a cool thing because now you can ride the rail indefinitely, infinitely, as many times as you want. That is a gift. That is something that is kind of a cool way to travel.
I don't think I realized that.
Yeah,
That's nice.
yeah. It wasn't a one-time trip. It wasn't a one-way. It was an infinite pass. And so you guys had gotten a tip from Andre the Gifted One in Arganessen that that Merrick's might know where your missing Warforged is. And so you guys were headed to Sharn. And there were two trains that could get you there. You had to make a transfer in Star Alaska, but first you had to go around the Horn from Thronehold all the way around to Star Alaska, which meant several different stops through the night. Every
If I
stop,
recall, we talked about the route we were going to take for quite a while.
it was quite a while that you talked about it.
Like most things we talk about
right?
that have little to no consequence.
That's the funny thing is there are the things that are worth doing meta-analysis on, you guys don't spend a whole lot of time on, and the things that really aren't worth meta-analysis, you guys spend a good bit of time on. And
If we're lucky, by the end of this recap, we'll get to our camping trip and we'll get to hear about how bad we did.
yes, that will be coming up. I take it personally when you guys your attention is focused on things that I haven't either done any work on or any sort of I sort of have to back up and say, whoa, how did I accidentally steer them here, or are they just focusing on something that isn't, like, I don't know. It's a constant battle being a DM. You make a rock on the ground shiny enough, and someone is going to pick it up and think that it's part of the main quest line. And so it's a little bit of
The claw.
The claw is our master.
right. Anyway, so yes. But the fun thing about the train was that I wanted to make the train not quite like the Hogwarts Express, but because I try not to do anything like Harry Potter-ish in the world, even though it would be fun. But the train is important in that every stop, new desserts, new foods are brought onto the train that represent the station that they just left. And so it's more of an experience being on the train than it is just a boring commuter train, especially that circuit that goes from Thronehold to Thronehold all the way around the upper area of Corvair. So I made up 12 different desserts, and there are some you guys haven't ever seen, but if you decided to ride the rail in the circle, you would find a dessert for every stop. And the dessert represents sort of the culture of the city of Ardev. There are select wines because Ardev is wine country. There are select different types of beers. And Vakias, I think we went over this last time, but there are also illicit liquors that you can drink from.
Mm-hmm.
That were offered specifically to you, being a well-dressed fancy man.
Yes, and I, of course, was playing this role of being this businessman who was coming to Sharn to meet with a brewing company to sell.
That's right. That's
whatever
right.
I was selling. I can't remember exactly, but
yeah, you were targeted by the bartender James, and he saw an opportunity and offered you some black absinthe, which is a curious sort of alcohol that causes you to hallucinate and lose your purse.
Well, it caused me to hallucinate and see a million faces, and then I had a second shot, and it just made me a little loopy,
Mm-hmm.
but
A little
enough to be
absent-minded.
exhausted. And then
absent-minded, yes. So funny.
but my
Love
purse wasn't stolen from
You're
me
welcome.
until I passed out.
That's right. You were recovering and you lost your purse. But do you guys remember what happened before then? Did it happen before then? I want to say that the train was stopped.
Yeah. So what I have written
Train
is
stopped after that, right?
I'm going to pull up the map for myself here.
what I have written on our Discord server is Cornelius goes to the bar and James the bartender offers a family drink, absinthe, and Cornelius starts hallucinating. Carefree chats a little and wanders around eating snacks. As you mentioned, Zia, Zanachka, Rufus, and Brad go snag a car to relax in, and they meet a young gnome named Daisy on her way to Zalargo to meet her uncle.
That's right, yeah.
After a quick stop in Thaliost, we continue on to Fairhaven. And near the end of the 12-hour journey, we are awoken by the train suddenly making an unplanned stop.
That's right.
And an angry mob can be seen and heard protesting and forcing their way onto the lightning rail.
Yes.
And we watch as 2 House Orion guards are dragged off board. And that's where that episode ended for the night. Quite a cliffhanger.
That's right. The train itself is run by an Orion mage, because the House Orion is the one in charge of the lightning rail. It's minimally guarded, but there are 2 guards that kind of protect and make sure that the piece is kept on the train. But at a unscheduled mining station, there was an abrupt sort of disruption in the train path, and a bunch of miners got on. They were protesting.
Union thing.
It was a union thing. Fair wages, being represented in the 5 nations, having good working conditions. And who was the one that was leading all of them?
Well, Thrax is the one that decided and realized first that it was a union dispute.
Yeah, because you guys could only see out the windows, because things were happening out on the station platform.
I don't remember the name of the
pushing. Eventually, the miners pushed their way on board, hijacking lightning rail. And one of my favorite characters of all time, Jack, the leader, announces a change of plans.
Miner Jack.
A change of plans. He says, "We are going to Zolenberg as his captives."
Mm-hmm.
At this point, after Thrax realized it was a union dispute, Daisy, our little gnome friend, reveals that her uncle works for the Miners Guild.
Yep. The one she was going to go visit.
In Zolenberg, right.
Yep. And she's headed that direction too.
So the group wants fair treatment from the Miners Guild. And when Daisy hears this, she offers to help by speaking with Jack.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're about 33 hours from Starlasker and about another 15 to Zolenberg. And at this point, we kind of just settle in and let happen what's happened. Mostly, I think, because Jack is the greatest storyteller of all time. I think all of us could have just listened to Jack tell stories for 33 literal hours. As Jack's stories started out well, let me tell you. One time,
right?
He was a tall tailor for sure.
Yeah, so Jack is an inspiration because I have worked construction most of my working life, and there's always a Jack of sorts on the job site at one point. One of the subcontractors always has a tale to tell that is very, very much stretched. That is fantastical, and they have that type of charismatic personality that is, it needs to be used somewhere, so it's used to tell stories on the job site. And so,
would you say that there's a Jack in all trades?
No, there's a Jack. in a few trades, but that's,
I mean, never mind.
Now, if I don't remember who I talked to. I think it might have been Phidias. But we decided that the strategy was to get these guys liquored up and then tell them we need to go look for women and then sort of like lead the charge off the train but not go with them.
yeah.
And that's exactly what we did.
So Construction Jack, in my world, also drinks a lot too, and sometimes shows up on the job site drunk. And so Miner Jack also had to be very. He had to favor the liquor as well, and his stories got even more extravagant and fantastical the more that he drank. And so, and it was really hard to get him knocked down or redirected. He just wanted to tell bigger and better stories.
And I have the Daisy, Thrax, and Zanachka sit listening forever because really we were all engrossed listening to DM Justin play Jack, listen and tell these stories. One of them to keep going.
Was off the cuff, not written down.
But his stories are so engrossing that no one seems to realize how much beer that Zanachka and Bradley are feeding him. Eventually, Jack passes out, and Bradley begins to lead the group of miners to the helm car so they can stop the lightning rail and find some ladies. This is when the rail gets stopped by another group of criminals. Can you believe it?
I can't.
So this is a second group of hijackers. These are gnomes that barge in, and they mention finishing the other half of the job to Jack. So they know Jack, and they mention something about he's done half the work. And then my favorite character, Jack, gets straight up murdered by these gnomes. They murder him in cold blood. They then proceed to murder and rob several other miners and make their way from one car to the next. And these gnomes are dressed, I don't know if they all had masks, but there was at least some of them that had masks on.
They were like in woodland camouflage, kind of.
Yeah. So in the back of the lightning rail car, armed gnomes have also entered the back car, which is where Carefree and Zia and Daisy were. So they rob them, and we let them take our stuff. They attempt to abduct Daisy. And Carefree tries to escape with Daisy while Zia and Rufus finally fight back. But there was a long period where we just went along. We gave them our money. We gave them our packs. We didn't.
Well, Phidias and Thrax, and I don't remember, was it Phidias and Thrax and they were in Vakias? They were all sort of in a different area, kind of out of sight. Like the party was split at this point. And the hard part about a train is each train is its own little microcosm. And Thrax and Phidias and Vakias were all in the dining car or in the one of the front cars, and then the rest of the party and Daisy were all in the rear car with the private the private cabins. And so it was interesting to see the two different groups that had to make decisions independently of each other, having to decide what to do for most of this train trip. Like most of the trip, you guys were in different places. Every once in a while, you'd check in, but for the most part, you were in different locations on the train. And so it was like in a single area, you were a split party. And this was the leader of those gnomes said something to the people in the rear that was really, really unsettling. Do you remember what he said?
Yeah, well, and we breezed over the fact that Daisy said her uncle works for the Miners Guild, but that was a pretty significant thing because the Miners Guild has been chasing us since day one.
That's right.
And now here's a girl whose dad is part of the Miners
That's
Guild.
right.
And so the gnomes are continuing to attack, and they say, "Give us the girl; she'll be safer with us." The miners were going to accidentally kill her, indicating the Jack and his buddies that they were going to accidentally kill her. And then a masked gnome says he knows. He talks to Carefree and the other group, and he says he knows all about their plans to seek Merrick's in Sharn. And they just want to take the girl.
Yep.
which is super unsettling because we've just left. We just have these new IDs. Nobody knows who we are. Nobody knows anything about us. We're just trying to get to Sharn so we can get our friend. And now these guys show up and they know stuff. So they grab Daisy from Carefree, who was trying to protect her. And Carefree asks Daisy if this is normal. And Daisy says, they see the future. Haven't you heard of the order? These are my people. So Daisy wasn't really freaking out. She recognized that, going with this people was not like getting abducted. She wasn't too worried about it.
Yep.
Carefree, on the other hand, was freaked the heck out that these people knew all about our plans suddenly,
right,
out of nowhere. So she pleads with Enceladus and Root to help, as somehow this group knows who they are, what their plans are. But the group, Enceladus, Root, the people near Carefree were pretty concerned about getting to Sharn. So they stay on the lightning rail, continuing to Fairhaven, while the group takes off with Daisy. Carefree follows the masked gnome and Daisy into the woods. So they take off.
Yeah.
And this is
and the train takes off. So the party, though split before on the train, is now officially split. Where Daisy and Carefree are moving in a different direction, and the train with the rest of the party is moving along the line.
And there's a great moment where there was fighting in the front of the train with, I think, I don't know if it was Anachka was fighting, but Thrax, Bradley, and I think Cornelius were fighting. They were moving outside of the train towards the rear, and like we just were missing each other. And we could have done some, like, everybody could hear what was going on, but we didn't metagame it. We just let it. We let it happen.
Happen.
Yeah.
So the train takes off back to Sharn, and Carefree went literally just chasing into the woods, pursuing this masked gnome and Daisy.
Yeah. So now at this point, like the party is split. The intention was to go to Sharn, and so the main group sort of talked about what happened. And we're still just resolved to head to Sharn, and they did. I don't remember if we had a couple of little things with James at the transfer at Star Lasker. He had sent some thugs to sort of potentially rob the party, and you guys quickly turned them around and said, "Nuh-uh, turn around, be done." And then you got on your train.
If I recall, didn't I grapple one of them and throw them onto the rails for the train?
Yes. Yeah.
And that was over really fast.
Yeah. They all said, hey, no, we were just told that
whoa, never mind.
Easy marks, sort of thing. And they sort of bugged out really quick. But then you guys were able to get onto the line that went to Sharn without any issue. That train has a very, very different feel. It's more like a commuter train. It's not as whimsical or as themed as the train that goes in a circle from Thronehold to Thronehold. It's more of just an all-business sort of train. And you guys didn't really experience much issue until you got to Sharn. And so
there was a very important part, though. Very pertinent to Sharn, so I'll just read it here. The party is split. In Fairhaven, a few Inquisitors board the lightning rail.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Thrax, the group firm up their stories about their reasons for going to Sharn, because these Inquisitors were going through the cars asking people about the event, the kidnapping, the hijacking, all that. So they're firming up their stories about reasons going to Sharn while sitting at the bar. They decide to talk privately, and the Inquisitor Marcus kind of comes by and reminds them, hey, I'm going to need to talk with you guys. So they spend time making up stories. When they speak with Marcus from the Inquisitors Guild in Sharn, they recount the facts as they remember them. Marcus asks about Daisy and if she had a bag and if she mentioned her last name. He mentions Thrax is pretty interested in these Inquisitors, and maybe he wants a career, he tells them. So he mentions that Thrax could speak with his superior, Frida, if he'd like a job someday. So these are some connections we're making here.
That's right.
Well, the other thing, too, is that Thrax told the truth. His story was that his cousin told him that there was work in the docks or in the cogs. And he was just looking for physical labor because he's a pretty physical guy.
Yep.
And Marcus ended up telling him that was probably a trap or a terrible idea. And he said the Inquisitors Guild is always looking for good workers. So then I ended up just kind of like role playing it out and be like, maybe it would be good for Thrax to get in with the Inquisitors Guild.
Yep.
And so he just kind of turned his charisma on and started asking him lots of questions and kind of in the hopes that it would get him to leave us alone, but also in the hopes of like, this might help us get into Sharn and it might be helpful once we're in Sharn.
Yeah, so Inquisitor Marcus had an acolyte with him named Rin, and these two were sort of a pair. Rin is very much sort of like a sort of drag your feet young worker that is just doing the job for the benefits. He's not really he doesn't have his heart in it. And Marcus is a seasoned wise veteran who's been on several different missions, and he has seen a lot of things and has connected to a lot of people. And so you get this Laurel and it's not Laurel and Hardy, because both of those guys were idiots, but you get sort of like this wise old man and this very naive sort of spoiled young man sort of duality here, which is fun. It's fun to play with, but they quickly Marcus is really quick to give Thrax some info about the Inquisitors and how they always need help, and then they very quickly leave the train, the lightning rail, and you guys are set to continue on.
Yeah, so the lightning rail arrives in Passage, and that's where the Inquisitors depart, is in Passage. They continue on to Star Alaska, and that's where, while waiting for the transfer rail to Sharn, they are jumped by some dwarves. And after a bit of a fight, the muggers give up, declaring it's not worth the money, but a little bird had told them that they have some money.
That's right.
And then continuing on...
Wait, hold on, didn't Thrax like twist some arms there and try and find out who the little bird was?
I think so. That's what I thought.
And they said, ask the guy who stole your money, is what they say before running off. And then they continue on, and they run into James, the bartender.
Mm-hmm.
And he has some merchandise that he's been stealing from people. And they get a long story from him about why he needs the money and give him kind of a sob story. And they get him to kind of... they negotiate a life change for him.
Yes. Do you remember what his sob story was?
I do not.
He was being extorted by some bad guys to make this illegal absinthe, this black absinthe that you're not supposed to make, and it's not legal to have. But his family distillery and family farm, like he was being extorted by these mobsters to make it for them, and they have a big ring of distribution and illegal stuff. And
my dog is just barking like crazy. I'll be right back.
No problem. So he basically said, "Hey, my hands were tied, and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get out of this." And you guys kind of said, "Okay, well, give us what you have because you owe us, and we'll look into this for you," and kind of let him go on his way. Is that what you guys remember?
If I recall, Thrax told him that he was going to be joining the Inquisitors Guild, and that I would be his ally to deal with the thugs.
Yeah,
and to get a life change for him, and that if he were ever in trouble or needed money, to come and find Thrax because he would be located in Sharn.
Yeah, that's right. Sort of that's exactly right.
Kind of like you don't steal from other people, you come get money from me. Yeah. I will get you out of this. Stop doing bad things.
Right. And he's like, I promise I won't do anything bad. And you guys let him go. But you did rifle through what the bags that he had in order to try to reclaim some of the money that Vakias lost. And there wasn't the full amount, but there was some. So he got a little bit of his plane back.
I don't remember if we got the pants back or not, though.
I don't think you got the pants back because did someone? So someone stole your pants. The miners stole your pants. Who stole your pants?
Where's your pants, Corny?
I thought it was the gnomes. Didn't the gnomes steal your pants?
Didn't it happen like more than once?
No, it wasn't the no.
Was it?
Wait.
I don't think the miners stole anything, and I don't think they stole your
So we
pants.
put
That would be.
absinthe, like,
It was the miners because I don't know. The gnomes didn't care about stealing things. It was
Yeah,
Anyway, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
someone stole my pants. I watched someone else die over something silly, and I was like, "Take them." I don't want.
That's right. I think it was the gnomes that stole your pants, and so you found some replacements that didn't match your outfit, and it was a little bit embarrassing.
like wearing a purple silk shirt and some Levi's.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So the Lightning Rail group, along the way, after they get up on the train eventually, and they continue to talk about their plans and priorities, and finally they arrive in Sharn.
Yes.
Of course, they need to go through inspection.
Yes.
Then
That's right.
second inspection.
Secondary inspection. That's right.
There's an elf, Xerxes, who inspects them and sends them down to the south gate.
Yep.
And at the south gate, they find the Inquisitives Guild, handily enough, where an angry man is wondering why they've detained his daughter.
That's right. So there's this whole little plaza, and the Inquisitor's office is in one of the buildings in the plaza. There's a bunch of vendors in the center by the fountain. There's an inn and a pub, a couple other buildings, and then also the South Gate, which has some Sharn guards there too. And this is where people are sent that need a little bit more of a deeper investigation into their situation and their identity. And the Inquisitors are sort of take over the job. And from what I remember, you guys were handled and treated very respectfully and very nicely. You weren't roughly treated. You didn't get everything taken from you. You were just asked a bunch of questions.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. In front of you in line was a very unhappy man who was wondering why his daughter was being detained. And yes.
And eventually he spoke with Frida, the superior that Marcus mentioned. And in fact, Marcus is there.
Marcus, right, that's right.
And Thrax is excited to get his job underway. Basically, he's like, "Sign me up! I'm ready to go." However, Frida she has a concern, and she's concerned with Rook.
Mm-hmm.
It seems his large golden arm was seen at an assassination about a week ago.
It's hard to miss that large golden arm that he crafted for himself.
Mm-hmm. And so Thrax, wanting to impress his new boss, because he does like an on-the-spot interview.
That's right.
Helps to detain the prisoner. That being Rook.
Yes.
So Thrax takes Rook and he puts him in a cell. However, he does leave the door unlatched, so I don't know what you were going for there. Like, all right, new boss, I'll show you what I can do. But he left the door unlatched.
Here's the thing: I was thinking on the fly. I felt like this was one of those moments where it was like, okay, I need to make decisions really quickly that could have some major effect later on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I really want to get this position because I feel like it could be really beneficial to the party to finally have somebody on our side that isn't just the 12. And I want to get Rook out of this. Like, total exoneration is what I want, but the backup plan is escape. And so I wanted to just kind of like waste time, as well as like
Nice.
rookie mistake. Sorry, I didn't
Oopsie.
latch the lock the right way. So that's what I was thinking in that moment.
Got it. Also present was Alkalite Rin, who was tasked with helping Thrax begin his paperwork to join the guild. And so you just started right then going through your paperwork, doing all crossing all the T's and dotting the I's.
That's right.
So the three remaining party members then, that being Vacius, Enceladus, and Phidias, are free to enter Sharn. But they're kind of hesitant to just go in and leave everybody else behind. So there is a tavern at the south gate.
Mm-hmm.
And they go check it out. Sky Somerset is the half-elf that owns the tavern. And they get a place inside. The angry man from the guild is present with his wife. And also an angry-looking purple tiefling.
Mm-hmm. I forgot about her.
Thrax gets the lowdown on the Inquisitives Guild from Sky. Oh, I'm sorry. Gets the lowdown on the Inquisitives Guild from Rin, and he gets his blue acolyte robes. He gets his uniform. And then Thrax participates in the questioning of Rook. Actually, Thrax takes over the Inquisition for Frida. And he does a good job. She lets him stay at the tavern.
Yep.
Kind of an interesting twist.
The thing, again, I was trying to waste time.
Yeah.
The only problem was I couldn't really metagame. I felt like it wasn't appropriate to metagame. And so Jake A was so stressed out.
Yeah.
He kept metagaming and saying like, I'm so hot, like I'm so sweaty right now. Why is this so intense?
He was trying to make a decision on whether he would try to escape, like he tried to last time someone was trying to question him, or stay there and just kind of hang with it.
Yeah.
There was that man's daughter was in the cell next to him too. I forget what her name is. I'm trying to remember what the names of those people were. Did you write down their names?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did. Let me find them.
I wrote it down in a notepad and then it got deleted.
Oh, okay.
I was like, I'm going to start taking notes, and then lost them.
I think I just named them in Roll20, but
yeah, I'll find it.
That's fine. But their daughter was in the cell next to him, and he was so. I did remember that he was so stressed out and sweaty. He had a very small conversation with her, and he kind of was like, she said, "Hey, just let me go. I need to get out of here," and he was totally complicit and just made that happen.
Here's the thing, though. He specifically asked, "Is she hot?"
He did actually ask, "Is she hot?" And I remember I said yes, but
so it was Margaret and Clarence Darrenbald.
Yeah,
are the parents, and the daughter is Regina.
Regina, that's right. And the thing that he passed up by not asking or talking to Regina. There's a lot of story he could have been involved with there, but he was so concerned about his own scenario that Regina essentially in the role play asked him several times to be a part of her world, and he said no.
Yeah, he was just trying to keep his own story straight, and he couldn't do that.
Story straight, and he didn't want to be distracted by a beautiful young female. But she had a lot of ways for him to get out of his situation that he didn't think about or didn't actually connect with. So anyway.
Jake was just unintentionally giving them false information because he couldn't remember what the real answer was. He wasn't trying to be deceptive. He couldn't remember. He didn't know.
And the questions were all about his involvement in the assassination. And he essentially was like, well, it wasn't me. I didn't, I was just volunteering as a guard there, and But he did. The Inquisitors were asking for some key documents from Korth, or from the the Inquisitors in Korth about what happened, so they could kind of corroborate his story. But he decided, Thrax, didn't you come to the cell in the middle of the night and say, let's get out of here, or what?
I was like, no, I told him, I did that as a backup. Go get back. So he actually snuck out because we didn't metagame any of it.
Right.
And I told him I did that as a backup. Go get back into your cell. I'm gonna get you out of this.
He had to sneak back into his cell so he wouldn't get caught.
Yes, he did have to sneak back into his cell, and he almost got caught.
Which would have been difficult, which would have been bad, because that would have been twice. It's hard to really convince someone of your innocence if you're trying to escape twice from being questioned by the law. Not just once. Once is maybe forgivable, which, as we'll see, is forgivable, but twice is sort of like, I don't know about this. So I was sweating a few bullets there myself, thinking about how I would try to finish this play. Actually,
fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. Well, you're not gonna fool me again.
you be on.
So the next day, I think Frida needs to bring her evidence before the board, before they make a verdict on Rook. And the group, I have in parentheses, we need a name for our group. Debates whether to break Rook out or not. This is still the night before. So Thrax drops on the angry man and his wife Clarence and Margaret Darnball. They discuss their daughter Regina. Thrax actually follows Clarence as he leaves the tavern and goes into Sharn.
He does, yeah.
At this time, also, Phidias relates to Vachias. They were left alone and they had a little private conversation. Phidias relates to Vachias' reluctance to return to Solitude as his ancestors were significant. And he goes into some of the detail about how they are awaiting the return of the Mazarak, which is his last name. It's like a messiah.
That's right. And I think this was the first time that Phidias had really sort of shared this connection, and his concern about this connection to anyone else in the party. There had been sort of an assumption that he was reluctant, but this was the first time he said, I just don't want to be a part of this.
So Rook, when he broke out, he says he decides he doesn't want to be alone anymore. And as soon as his door creaks open, Regina speaks up, requesting to be released as she has been wrongly imprisoned. He picks her lock, and they sneak across the yard into Thrax's room. When she hears her father has gone into Sharn, she says that she is doomed. Because he has set her up to clear his own name. That's what she says. And she also mentions that he runs underground fight clubs. He imports shifters and makes them fight at the Rooster and Stump.
And that should be very familiar to the other D&D group that I run.
Cool.
Not as important for you guys, but
cool.
Very important to the other group.
So at this point, Thrax convinces Regina to leave for her country house in Breland. And that's when he also convinces Rook to sneak back into his cell. So she's gone, but Rook goes back to his cell. In the morning, Vachias uses Animal Messenger. He has his Animal Messenger to send a message to Carefree. Carefree?
What?
What happened to Carefree?
Talk about Carefree for now.
So Carefree ran into the woods. You want to talk about Carefree? Okay, so she chased Daisy and this gnome into the woods, saying that she was captured by them, and she had to pursue her captors for hours and hours, convincing them to take her prisoner. And they were having none of it. They were booking it through the woods. Like
prisoner.
What's that?
They didn't want a prisoner, and they kept trying to shake her, and she said, no, you are, like, I am your prisoner, you have to take me with you.
Right, yeah. I'm going along peacefully, I'm going along quietly. Because this was, her link to the Miners Guild, basically. These people knew stuff, and she wasn't going to give them up. And she grew increasingly desperate, and starts just throwing information out there about things that maybe that they would bite on. And she throws a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah.
But eventually she mentions the name Orla de Civis.
Mm-hmm.
And they both stop and they turn and they look at her and they say, wait now, hold on. And then they actually start a conversation. And since Carefree has some good information, they share that Daisy is Orla's cousin, actually. And seeing that Carefree knows some stuff, they agree to let her accompany them to somewhere. And it turns out that they were booking it through the woods to get to this huge Zeppelin, a beautiful Zeppelin, which they board, and they are heading for Zolenberg. But these gnomes, they don't trust the Lightning Rail, they don't trust House Orion, they don't trust House Lorander. They're flying their own Zeppelin, which was really, really cool. Like, I definitely did not anticipate a Zeppelin. There was security on there, but Carefree and Daisy had a chance to talk, and we learned quite a bit about the De Civis family, and about the relationship between Orla's father and her and his two brothers. So Murtali De Civis had two brothers, one of which Daisy's father is one of the brothers. Of course, that's why they're cousins.
That's right.
They get to Zolenberg, and hopefully Carefree's developed some kind of a relationship with Daisy by then. And we have a meeting with several other people. Cedrus De Civis, who is from House Civis. They have a meeting. Also at the meeting is somebody from House Thrash, and also someone from the
leader, the guy with the mask. Remember, he on the flight, he introduced himself. He actually took his mask off, and he had a very scarred face. And he introduced himself as Aiden De Civis.
Aiden De Civis, yep.
And he basically says, let me tell you a little bit about the Order. And Carefree didn't really know about this, but House Civis has a faction of people that can tell the future a little bit. They have the ability to sort of react and respond to the future that matters to House Civis. Not really anything else, but matters to House Civis. And so he says, we can see things that will happen, and we can anticipate and change the course to help House Civis respond to the ever-changing events. And anyway, he sort of becomes a little bit more transparent on how he knows, or how he knew what he knew, and a little bit of his reasoning for wanting to protect the De Civis girl.
Right. When the other members get there from House Thrash, it's Ungroth and House Civis Cedrus, the three of them sit there and talk for like a long time without acknowledging Daisy or Carefree really at all. They just kind of have a conversation about their past dealings with capturing Orla and Murtali, this kind of relationship between House Civis, House Thrash, and the Miners Guild.
Yep.
Along the way, we learn that Daisy's mother and her father are on Thronehold. And Daisy's uncle Rufus of the Miners Guild is in custody. His daughter Privia is missing. So there's lots of family stuff going on, lots of turmoil between these brothers. And this pompous jerk, Cedrus De Civis, forces Daisy actually to reveal that she has a very small dragon mark, like on her heel.
Yeah.
And he declares her officially the property of House Civis.
Yeah.
And Carefree sitting by, ignored all this time, and then witnessing this abuse of this girl. When they finally talked with Carefree, she was not very helpful. She didn't intend to be unhelpful, but they had put her in a mood.
Yes, Cedrus had put her in a mood, and later, Joe, you told me that that character really bothered you. Like,
oh yeah,
really got under your skin.
He did,
and I'd like to know more about that.
Well, he was just very condescending. Mm-hmm. I think he thought he had all the cards, all the knowledge, all the information. Nobody else had anything worthwhile to add. And so, I don't know. I think I and Carefree were feeling like, very, very worthless, very underappreciated. Anyway, I don't know. He bugged me. I wanted to murder him. I mean,
and you probably could have, but it would have been different.
Right. Yeah. Right. Eventually, though, Carefree becomes Gers. Yeah. Reveals the changeling nature to these folks who I think knew anyway. Somehow they knew. And so Gers plots and plans with the four and makes some arrangements. He ends up telling them almost everything he knows, including...
That was after they actually, like Cedrus said, I don't care what you have to say, and then he took Daisy and was like getting off the Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everyone was sort of like deplaning. And Carefree said, no, okay, wait, like let's really talk here.
This was 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
After Joe had a little time to cool down. Right. I was like, I got a situation here.
Right. I gotta calm down. Right. There was a little bit more cooperation.
So the people came back. They had laughed and they called him back and said, "Fine, just tell us. You got like 5 minutes."
Yeah.
So he gave them a lot of good information, I thought. And the group representatives seemed to be willing to help find Orla in solitude and navigate a plan with the Serrani. So he really told them a lot of stuff. So those groups said that they will contact us through Tankus.
Yep.
They all go their separate ways, and Carefree heads toward Sharn. So there's potentially a lot of stuff happened, a lot of connections made with House Thrash, House Civis.
And Cedrus is very... He is very obvious that he has a job to do, and he doesn't care or see or respond to anything that isn't the job that he has to do. And so... the reason why he's so short and arrogant is because he's short and he is also arrogant. But he also has a very important job to do, and if you're not going to help him directly with the job in the way he wants you to help him, he doesn't care. Like, he's just going to do the job himself. And he is very capable of doing the job himself. He doesn't need a lot of help. And so I'm sure that was very frustrating to someone who felt like they had a lot to add in a different way, but had a lot of information and a lot of connections herself, to add to the potential, and had other motivations on her own. So, Gers wanting to find Orla or wanting to, solve the problems with the Serrani are way, way, way different than Cedrus. Cedrus wants to collect the Civis daughters, the ones that are important. He is trying to find them because that's his job. And he's also realizes that, sometimes Dragon Marks skip generations and that these daughters of the Civis are very important to House Civis. They actually are an asset, and to lose them would be something that House Civis does not want to happen. And so he's towing the party line in a lot of ways, but in a way that is very abrasive, and he assumes that he knows everything, but he also is coming from a very different position and reason for the same outcome that Carefree wanted. So anyway, I thought that was a really fascinating play, and I thought that was a really interesting interchange, and I really liked how it went down. It was really frustrating to you, but I really liked how your character and another NPC had very like similar goals, but very different motivations.
Right.
And anyway, it did make you frustrated, and like it's not one of my goals, but it is like I appreciate that you got in the way on some level, and that you had to get over your own self in order to work with and get to the point where you could work together and not like lose the potential there, because I threw you a huge potential, and it was looking like at the end of that session that you were going to throw the potential because of how difficult it was to work with Cedrus. and I was sort of in my mind thinking, okay, if this is the way it goes, then we'll just keep it going. But you didn't. You came back and said, okay, no, like here, let me give you something that will to satisfy your motivation here. Like, let me tell you a little bit more.
And part of it too, actually, was I literally changed the person didn't change. I was still my character, but I changed my exterior appearance and my demeanor from Carefree, who had developed a relationship with Daisy, this human woman, into Gers, the immortal assassin. And that actually put me in a different mindset too. Like,
nice. Same
character, but different character.
Yep.
Anyway, Vikas sent an animal. They had said, hey, let's figure out where Carefree is. We'll send an animal messenger. Maybe she's close to us, and have her meet us at the Black Lion. They didn't know if I was in town, if I was dead, whatever.
And the Black Lion is it's like a tourist pub.
Pub in Sharn, yeah.
It's the first place that you would be able to get a drink off of the lightning rail if you made it through the main gate. And it's one of those. It's kind of like a really iconic, campy, very overplayed landing spot for a lot of tourists.
And you kind of like compare it to like Hard Rock Cafe.
I did, yeah, right, yeah. That's exactly what it is. It's notable in that it is the Black Lion, but it is not anything. It's not really a great representation of Sharn. It's just sort of a thing. It's not a franchise, but it feels like a franchise.
So the next day, Frida comes back with the board's verdict. They've heard the evidence, and they find Rook slightly guilty.
Right, slightly guilty.
And he needs to be punished for escaping custody. And the sentence is 2 months in jail or a deal. And the deal is helping with a drug bust. And Jake really didn't want to be in prison for 2 months.
Right.
So he takes the deal. And there is a ring of dealers selling a powerful psychedelic, black absinthe.
What? Interesting.
You don't say.
So Rufus is sent with Thrax as part of the job to Moonwatch.
Yes.
To track the Absinthe Gang.
Yep. Moonwatch is a sort of like migrantly or seasonally inhabited elven, like Eladrin town or outpost. The Eladrin sort of float in and out of their Thalanis, their world through their towers, but sometimes it's advantageous for them to find a place in Eberron to kind of hang out for a while Thalanis is coterminous with Eberron. And so this area, Moonwatch, is one of those places that the Eladrin decide to hang out every once in a while. But it's a beautiful like castle town and it was supposed to be the scene of this drug deal.
I was not here that day, but I am told that Rufus ended up testing some of the black absinthe and was found not worthy.
Well,
So here's what went down.
yep, this is it.
We went on our mission, and the plan was for Thrax to do his thing, which is being very sneaky, and being around the corner while Rufus tracked them down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe they gave us any instructions on whether or not they wanted the dealers dead or alive. We just wanted to procure it, get information about them, and then come back. Was that correct, Justin?
You were supposed to make the deal happen. Like, you were given money, you were given like instructions to make the deal happen and bring the black absinthe back with you. You didn't have to kill anybody, you didn't have to do anything, but you were to be very observant in what and how it went down.
So we went to this town, and Thrax was so sneaky that even the tree he was in didn't know he was there.
Yes. There was a lot of sneaking on Thrax's part, yes.
Unfortunately, we didn't really think that the dealers with strange Australian accents were going to tell Rook to test it. Another thing that we did think of, however, or that I thought of, was the whole reason he was in this trouble was because they saw his golden hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I specifically requested him to have gloves to cover that hand so that he could not be later exposed after this undercover deal, which comes into play later. So he went to go and do the deal, and Thrax is in the tree watching, while Rook is down at the docks with these Australians. I don't remember where they're from, so we'll say they're from Australia.
Sure.
And they say, well, aren't you going to test it to make sure that it's legit? At which point, Rook didn't realize that he needed to take 2 in order to be okay.
That's right.
And we didn't suspect that would be the case, that he would need to do this. At which point he takes 1, and I think it kind of tips him off that he doesn't know what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And they decide to take the money, and the deal isn't going to go down.
Right.
And Thrax decides that, well, this is going to go south because Rook doesn't know he needs to take 2, and they're about to take advantage of my friend. They're going to take the money, they're going to take the black absinthe, and when we return to the Inquisitors Guild, this is going to look really, really bad. So Thrax decides to take matters into his own hands, not realizing that this is an encounter designed for an entire party, and he single-handedly decides to do this. And quite literally flies onto the boat that they're about to leave on that has the black absinthe, and just absolutely unleashes hellfire on all of these thugs.
Yeah, the cool thing about Thrax is he has a lot of dragon fire based attacks, things where he can make cones of fire and spread it. And you did, and you lit the boat on fire.
Yeah, I specifically tried to cause as much commotion and distraction as possible, to where I was hoping that they would get frightened and run away, not realizing that these are really high-level thugs.
Yeah, right.
And I really stress tested my monk. Like really,
totally did.
Which was a fun but also a stressful environment, realizing that we're trying to rescue my main character, and here I am, probably about to lose my second. Well, there were some moments where it was like, Thrax is probably gonna die.
This is why you can't have nice things, Jake.
Yeah. No, I certainly took my new car out onto the track with this one. The first thing I ended up doing was actually pushing the thugs off of the boat. Because if you'll recall, Thrax has an ability that allows him to like sonic boom.
Yep.
So I sonic boomed the thugs off of the boat into the water, which I think there was like 2 or 3 of them. And then I set the boat on fire and engaged the rest of them.
That's right.
So most of the thugs were either busy trying to get back onto the dock and or trying to get the fire off of the boat that had their black absinthe on it. So it allowed me to kind of take on 3 of them instead of 8.
They also had a mini, like the boat itself had like a mini ballista, like a crossbow on it.
I wanted nothing to do with that.
They wanted to get the fire put out so they could use that on you, and they were trying.
Nothing to do with that.
Trying, but they didn't. Rook also was the funny thing is, this encounter definitely was gauged for a larger party.
Yeah.
I, in my mind, had what's that?
At some point, I know that Enceladus showed up and didn't Vakias, like we flew in. Remember
Yeah.
that?
It did. We
Yeah,
I
came
just
in.
had a feeling
okay.
that something was wrong.
No, well, what happened is Carefree got the animal messenger from Vakias, and she had shown up to Sharn. I had turned back into Carefree. She showed up to Sharn, got in, no problem, got this bird, went and met him at the Black Lion, and they kind of updated her on what was going on. And they went back to talk to Frida and said, we can't tell you where they are, but it's dangerous, and used the animal messenger again to go and track him down. And so right as Thrax is like getting killed by these 8 ninjas,
Well, I think this was at the point where, it was at a really gnarly point where Rook was about to die and Thrax was getting close,
Yeah,
and
Rook-
they've discovered that he had a golden hand,
right.
and they had an axe. They were about to take his golden hand
Yeah.
and smelt it down.
yeah, the thieves go, hey
And-
boss, we got a golden arm over here. And then one
And
of
then
them
we
says,
took 2 weeks off.
you got to get that hand. And then the other one says, do you need an
It's like-
axe? Here.
Like axe in the air. 2 weeks off.
Now,
Yeah.
we're gonna take a week break.
And well, and so the
Jakes
axe
were
is swinging,
Selectively sweating for so long.
and the axe is swinging down when a swarm of bats flies in, because Enceladus joined the fray just at that exact moment.
Yeah, but do you guys remember what happened?
It
to
was the elven guard
Yes.
shot the ballista.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the guy missed and chopped off, or not chopped off, but nearly severed Rook's leg.
right.
He was nearly legless.
So
Chops into his leg with a sickening crunch.
right. So there's this contingent of Eladrin who are just sort of spending time in their outpost, and they sort of see what's going on and sort of say, whatever. Are we going to help these mortals? I don't think so. Maybe we should. And a single large, like man-sized arrow comes flying over the ramparts and hits this axe chopper square in the chest, and his aim is immediately redirected to sorry, my focus. Come on. Focus. There we go. His axe chop is redirected to Rook's thigh, and just makes this deadening, sickening crunch sound as it hits his upper thigh. He's already dead, so there's no blood, but it's just this terrible thud, sick thud sound. Yeah. So, and at that time, a group of bats, and I think Vakias, you too, an owl shows up to sort of rescue this encounter, which is going south pretty quick.
Yeah, they kind of swung the fight in their favor, and they managed to keep
Once the boat wasn't on fire anymore, that's when it really started to.
Yeah,
mess out.
they kept the boat of absinthe from escaping, is what they did. They saved the absinthe.
Yep.
Kind of mopped up, and then I think they were using the boat to get back to the south gate.
Leader, remember the leader? Do you remember what his name?
What happened? The leader. We finished off all of them except for the leader.
Yep.
Yeah, Lodic
And the
Nor.
leader got away.
Yeah, he disappeared. He kind of went behind the bridge and just vanished. and he vanished with the money, right? Like he took off.
Yeah.
So on some very rudimentary level, everything went the way it was supposed to, but not really.
Yeah, our friend lost his leg.
You guys,
And I was listening at this point because Phidias and Carefree stayed back in Sharn, and we just did some talking. So we were bystanders. So it was really shocking when Jake, who is usually pretty quiet in his role play, but when he role plays, he really does it well. Because then all of a sudden he's like, Rook is looking at his leg there and wondering how to fix it, and he just takes out his knife and he just hacks his leg the rest of the way off, and he picks up his leg and he throws it in the river.
that's right.
And I think everybody's jaws went,
What?
You do what?
What did you do? So he took his own broken leg off. This artificer has a mind of utility. He can make a lot of things, and if you guys remember, his Paragon path is self-forged. So he's like, I can just make a new leg. Why do I need this? It's not going to heal anyway, because I'm Revenant. So I'm just going to take it off and toss it. So for all of you warm-blooded mortals, you're looking at him as if he,
He's
cut his own leg. Right. Which he did, but to you, like, it was like, oh, that's a vital piece of your body, and he's like, I can make a new one, and it's not alive, so that's what I'm going to do. So he and I had talked a little bit about that in the beginning, and he actually took the reins on that and made that happen. I orchestrated it to the point where, he needed to repair it. He would have needed to repair his leg, but he took it from there and just cut it off and threw it overboard, which I thought was great.
It was awesome.
Totally great.
Yep. Phidias and Carefree did some stuff in Sharn while this was going on. They encountered some rhyming hoodlums, which was great. They were looking for a fight, and Phidias used some. He kind of won him over with his freestyle jive. It was pretty cool.
Was this before he accidentally put on a ring, or no?
This was after that, and I wasn't there for the ring. So why don't you guys elaborate on that part?
So as soon as I think when they were waiting for you, Carefree, there was an old guy in a robe that showed up, and he kind of like went straight for the party that was at the Black Lion.
Yeah, I remember this.
Yeah, and he sort of like pointed you out and said, "Here's a map, and you'll need this." And he handed you guys a ring.
So here's the background on that. This was the one time that Doug was actually at my house, and we were streaming together.
Yes.
I don't think that we were streaming, but yeah, we weren't streaming at this point, but we were playing together, and we'd had a couple of drinks.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, "Put the ring on," and I was joking, and he put the ring on, which I was clearly joking. I thought that I was clearly joking, and he was like, "Yeah, I put the ring on," and I'm sitting right next to him, and I'm like, "Put the ring on." I put the ring on. You put the ring on?
That's happened more than once, by the way. Where you
I immediately regretted making that suggestion.
This is all your fault.
Yeah.
It is my fault.
Right. So yeah, I didn't have any anticipation that anyone would put that ring on, being as cautious as you guys are.
Cautious.
Yeah, in your role play or in your metagame. But he, in this moment, just slipped it on, and it bound to his mind and showed him a location on a map somewhere in the tropics. And he could not get this thought of this location where there may be a treasure out of his mind because of the ring. He went and looked for professionals to help him determine like whether he could take the ring off or not. A really good friend of his deals in magic items, and that friend said, "I'm sorry, even if we cut your finger off, it's not going to happen." he sought some information about the map, and he figured out that the location that was burned into his brain was in the Lazar Principalities, which is on the east coast. And so he basically said, I need to go there. I can't get rid of this unless I go there. And the magic dealer said, you need to go there because it's the key to unlock the ring is the key to unlock this chest. And you probably have been conned because the guy that gave you the map will probably be waiting for you to steal the treasure and kill you when you do that. He says it's not a very common con, but he says I can't say I haven't seen it before. And so the consequences of Phidias having this ring on is he has different dice to roll when he's in battle, which cause him not to be able to roll a crit or a 1 very often, a 20 or a 1, and more often he'll roll in the middle of his band, which makes it harder to do really well in battle. But the reasoning was, he's distracted by this thought of this location constantly, and it's causing him to not be not have focus in battle. So he still has it at this point. Anyway, you guys, the other part of the party in the boat with the absinthe, they make it back to the South Gate. They talk to Frida, kind of get all that settled, and Rook is exonerated. He's done his work. You guys get a little bit more information about the Black Absinthe Ring, and you, at this point, are free to go into Sharn. And so you decide to head to Phidias's place. Just there is that interchange where Gers needed to get some equipment, and Phidias encountered the rhyming bandits in the alleyway, and there was a funny interchange of rhyming bandits and Phidias, and no fight because of the rhymes. And yeah.
So after Rook gets his writ of pardon, Thrax is done. So he's introduced to his new training officer, the Goliath Kelvar.
Yes.
And he won't get to say goodbye to Gers and Phidias because they're off. But he says he'll be in Sharn, and Thrax says his goodbyes.
Mm-hmm.
And he's leaving the group, and Saladin kind of pleads with him, asks if he'll change his mind and come with the group, but Thrax refuses. He's done. He's got his new job. So the remaining three make their way to Phidias, and the party is reunited.
Mm-hmm.
The group decides to head to House Cannith, the House Cannith Enclave, to meet with Merrick's, but they're jumped along the way by that same Sarlonan Absinthe gang, led by their leader, Lodignor himself. And Enceladus tries to intimidate the gang into backing down, but they clearly want to fight. And so we fight, showing off our new powers, level 16 powers.
And a fight happens, and you guys fairly easily overcome Lodic, and some of his goons get away. But something happens kind of funny at the very end of the battle.
Oh, yeah.
So
poison.
Gers uses some poison.
Right. I'd spent the morning getting that poison. Along the way, I also just briefly mentioned I stopped at a shop to order some special garb from a place called Vintage Vestments by Vin, the shopkeeper, who seemed to be, maybe he had a medallion that looked like it's one that the assassinated Reeve family had. I'm just going to mention it in passing. I don't know if it's significant or not. But yeah, during the fight, the other significant thing is we introduced these two trees that only our allies could use. An ally could use this tree to teleport from one site to the other. Might be important later. But Gers was carefree, used some poison on Lodic, and instead of killing him, it drove him permanently insane by this Idmos powder.
And you guys brought him. You decided to bring him back to the Southgate, to the Inquisitors Guild, as a sort of a trophy. Like, hey, we finished this job, and here's this guy. And because he was driven permanently insane, it's really we're unsure whether it is a helpful thing to the Inquisitors Guild that they have now a permanently insane ringleader of the Black Absinthe cartel. But you dropped him off anyway,
and we don't got to deal with him anymore. And we took his rod and gave it to Rook, who needed a rod, who needed an implement. So
glowing green skull. That's right.
And then that led right into our camping trip, I believe.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes, our physical people camping trip, not your party's camping trip, but you met with Merrick Stakhanith.
Yes.
The party met with Merrick Stakhanith, and he said, well, let me tell you a little bit of a story. I got some good news and some bad news. So he tells you a story of how he had, one of his, I don't know what you would call it, one of his captains out in the world was sort of wanting a promotion, was kind of overzealous. And he overheard Merrick say something about really, thinking that Celestine was a pretty cool Warforged, and that he would really like to study Celestine and his inner workings. And so this captain, who really wanted a promotion, said to himself, maybe I should try and kidnap this for my boss, because I am, I really want this promotion, and I'm very rash, and I do things, just because.
I like him.
Off the cuff. So Merrick didn't realize that he had hired this captain that was very, fly by the seat of the pants, reactionary, and this captain orchestrated the kidnapping of Celestine. And then Merrick says, I don't know what happened, but Celestine was kidnapped from the kidnappers and taken by the Lord of Blades. And everyone went, Lord of Blades! What? Because the Lord of Blades is a pretty...
I would say he's a bad man, but he's not a man.
He's a bad guy.
He's a pretty pivotal character in the lore and the canon of Eberron, written by Keith Baker. And
thanks for watching, Keith. Thanks.
Thank you for watching, Keith. And this party has never encountered the Lord of Blades in the story, or even in their own story lore. So it was a big dun 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 moment. And so Merrick said, "Okay." He looked at Rook and said, "You obviously need to. We need to make some a leg for you." And he kind of asked him, "Hey, so I know you need one leg, but do you want two?" And Rook said, "Sure." And so they took his other leg off and made him two bionic legs that matched his bionic arm, and gave him some cool ability, a cool ability to not be pushed. And so I don't remember. I think Jake and I have talked about what his legs do, but I don't remember. There was something that his legs do for him. Merrick's also said, "Okay, here's the deal. You're gonna want to infiltrate this place. It's still Eston. The Lord of Blades took over the forge at Eston in the Mornland. I'm gonna give you these medallions." And so he gave you these black steel medallions that were sort of a blue color, whereas the ones they looked very similar to Gur's, to the ones that the Reeve family all had, and the one that Vin had. But it was a blue stone. And Merrick said, if you put these on, you'll all look like Warforged. So you might be able to easily, get in and get your guy. And I have a surprise for you. But you'll find out what it is at some point. And so, did he let you Did he give you an airship, a lift on his airship again?
Yep. For the
Yeah,
second
Yeah.
time,
we
yeah.
got to the Mornland, right?
Yeah, for the second time, you guys were dropped off at the Mournland, similar place to where you were dropped off before.
Did we already go that you guys picked up Thrax again?
Oh yeah, how did Thrax get back?
Gers wanted to say goodbye.
Oh
But
yeah,
then-
that's
and
right.
then there was something bad happened to his officer, and you guys convinced Thrax that he needed to go with you to the Mournland to finish finding Celestine.
That's right. Yeah. So
Okay.
your training officer ate some bad cabbages, and you kind of were left with a couple days off. So you just kind of hopped on with everybody, and
Also, because the DM realized that Celestine was not in House Cannith, and it would not be great if Thrax wasn't with the party, because who knows how long this is going to take.
yes, because as we know from our history, it could take another year before they get back to.
Yeah. Make my third character define my first character.
That's right. So we had to wrap the story to get Thrax back into the party to help. So anyway, so you're flying. You land, you enter the Mournland, and all of you are attuned to the disorientation sickness that happens in the Great Grey Mist that surrounds, except for Thrax, but they all carried Thrax through, and by the end of it, he was fully attuned to make it through as well.
And we ran into some dogs immediately as soon as we got through.
That's right. That's right.
Mhm.
Well-
We ended up trying to be sneaky about it. It didn't end up going so hot. But as soon as we tried to engage with these people that were clearly watching us, because we had Vakias fly over ahead
Mm-hmm.
and see that there were people that were spying on us,
Mm-hmm.
we tried to do sort of like a pincer sneak attack to
Mm-hmm.
get advantage. And Vakias summoned his tree, and one of them used it.
Yes. So
What they were like, they're not allowed to use it. They're not allowed to. They're not.
Well,
it's specific. Dungeon Master. It says only allies are allowed to. Hey, Justin, only allies are allowed to use it.
But we were actually in an encounter with them at that point. You know, we were actually.
Yeah, we were about to throw down, man.
Yeah, but it was super frustrating because here we are once again sneaking and nobody knows who we are, and they're like, "Okay, here comes the assassin."
I know, yeah.
We can hear.
Yeah, they
They're like,
yeah.
"Oh, it looks like they're using the pendants that they look like Warforged,
right.
and they know everything about us." Oh, here comes the druid. Let's see if he puts up his walls.
They were calling all of your shots.
Like it was, and
We
it
were
was,
so,
and we were like,
so mad.
we were like, Merrick,
We're like, are you kidding?
you
We're-
betrayed us, Merrick.
I
We're gonna
specific-
kill you.
I specifically looked at Gers and I'm like, we're turning around. Celestine's probably a House Cannith. We're gonna kill Merrick's.
Right. So you guys were plotting revenge, and then all of a sudden, one of these one of these characters broke cover and used the tree that was only meant for allies, and you all realized at that moment, oh, well, maybe they're all allies. And the one that used the tree, Melanel, the bard, sort of like the leader of this group, kind of said, "Oh, Melanel, what did you do? You gave up our cover." And then they all introduced themselves as the people that Merrick's hired to help you with the effort to get Celestine back. And it's 6 original characters that I created for this, and you all sort of paired up with one, which was kind of fun, because I gave you the ability to play your character and your pair character in these battles.
We basically all had a follower.
You did. You all had a follower, and you all had a couple powers you could use of theirs in order to utilize them in the battlefield. So
it was awesome for us.
Essentially turned into a raid.
it essentially turned into double the amount. Like you have 12 allies on the battlefield, and that was cool. And also, some of you were saying not cool that we have 12 helpers to move on the Lord of Blades.
Well, because we then later on got in a battle.
Yes.
And there was like another 12 enemies.
I think we pretty poorly planned this approach.
12 enemies on the battlefield. So now there's 20 some figures on the battlefield, and having GM before, I was just looking at Justin going, "Oh, what have I done? There's so many things to keep track of on this battlefield."
Yeah, for sure.
But it was cool.
Let's back up a little bit and describe these helpers that were given to you by Merrick's. So there was a half orc, barbarian. He had 2 axes, and he was sort of the impromptu leader of this group of 6.
Do you have some of the figures with you that you can?
Yeah, I do. It's going to be hard to see.
Brim, the Wild Runner.
Yeah.
Yep. Brim the Wild Runner. And he sort of is a silent, quiet type that is very, very good at being a barbarian, very strategic. I have backstories on all of these people, but they're characters that are available to play for anyone. But the fun part is just having them, having you guys sort of test drive them. Then there was a bard named Melanel Kelly. It's hard to see. She has a harp guitar. She's a half elf, and she's charismatic, and she's sassy and very fun loving, and very outgoing. And is the first. She was the one that broke cover and kind of ruined it because she was having so much fun. But she is a bard.
She teamed up with Phidias, and Doug controlled those characters.
Yeah.
And Celadus teamed up with Tark Brim, and so Wes controlled him.
That's right. And then there was Bartamy Frostbranch, who is a dwarf cleric. And there's him right there. The funny thing is, this is the exact same figure that I used for Rook, and so Rook paired up with there were 2 figures on the board that looked almost identical, except for they had been painted different. But yeah, he and Rook teamed up, and he's a dwarf. He was important in the Great War, and now is just a cleric and is helping people. Then there was this sea elf druid, and
Lila.
Yep, Lila, who's very, very, very melodramatic and very emo and
dramatic,
and very, very sarcastic, and could care less that she was there, but you could tell that she actually really cared she was there. And Vakaya,
she was like a petulant teenage girl.
Yes, sort of like a petulant teenage girl. Like I don't want to be here, but I'm here. And yes, and she teamed up with the other druid, Vakias, and they sort of had funny banter, a funny rapport. So Lila, and then we have this gnome fighter,
Sergeant Rigbar Bondle of the Iron Vanguard.
Rigbar Bondle of the Iron Vanguard, which a gnome isn't very set up as a race to be a fighter, but he is and was and does. And who took control of him?
I took on him.
Yep.
Gers and him partnered up.
Yep.
Island of Misfit Toys, two of them.
That's right. And then the last character was a human monk who dresses like a warforged because
Thinks
he
he
was
is
raised
one.
by warforged.
Yeah.
His name was Grip, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
The Radiant Fist.
Grip the Radiant Fist, and he's a monk, and he has like warforged helmet and armor, and he talks like a warforged, and his allegiance is to warforged, and so it was appropriate that Thrax, that Jake was his buddy, because both of your characters are a warforged and a monk, so you got Grip, and you tried to bond with him, and he didn't. He was pretty much like, where are the warforged? I need to talk with my people, even though he's a human. And, he's
But doesn't he have like some components built into him or something? Is he or
it's just
no?
an outfit. Like it's just
an
an
outfit?
He doesn't have anything warforged on him. None of his stats are warforged, but he is a. He thinks that he is. He just has a helmet and a couple pieces of armor that look really similar to warforged, but he isn't. He isn't and doesn't. But he thinks that he is and does. So anyway.
I was thinking that he might be like of interest to the Lord of Blades, because doesn't the Lord of Blades kind of want to be a more like
Lord of Blades
human or
would
something?
laugh
Like,
at him because he's a fleshy and cut him
but
into
isn't
mince
Lord of
meat,
Blades
dude.
trying, like, doesn't he want to be like human in a way, or humanoid in a way?
Yes, that's the simple answer is yes. It's a way more complex answer than that, but yes.
But he's the one that we're going to find, and so we walk to the gates of Eston, where we think we can find him, and we've been to Eston before.
Right, and it looks different.
So, yeah, it's the ruined city are the gates of the Forge, and now it's guarded by these two Warforged, and so we decide. What's that? We decide to have the first six, us, our party, dress as Warforged, and have the new party, the new six, be our prisoners. And so we're going to approach the Lord of Blades as Warforged and present him these fleshies as like a tribute.
That's right. You were doing the New Hope, Star Wars, New Hope guards with a Wookiee sort of.
Right. Yep. And like, hey, we want to join you. Look what we brought you. Right. But once we get to the gates, open, we will try to find Celestine. That's our big plans.
Yep.
So the two guards halt us and tell us the Lord of Blades does not take flesh prisoners, and ask us if we have gone through the ritual.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, leave these fleshies and come into the ritual chamber. The main gates open, and a female-ish flesh / Warforged figure comes out, suspiciously sniffing.
Yep.
I don't know. Is there more description for her?
No, I mean, an average Warforged is pieces of armor that are held together by like magical like sinewy magical binding. So they look fairly standard. Everyone in Corvair and all of Eberron knows what a Warforged looks like because of the last Great War. Now, they don't have any flesh. They don't have anything that looks humanoid other than their figure, but they are definitely made out of metal and magic, like sinew. This female form looked like very, like she looked like a homunculus. She was like stitched together with metal plates and rotting flesh. It's sort of like if you tried to take the components of a Warforged and really try to make them look more fleshy and humanoid than they did, which is just really gross if you're not good at it. If you're not a flesh weaver, if you're not Mordain, the flesh weaver, even he's not very good at it. But you have not. She does not look very good. She looks rotten and dripping with pieces of mortified flesh, and is sort of a robot as well. So not a robot, a Warforged.
If I recall, me
So-
and Doug were making a parody of the Steve Miller song "Dreamweaver."
Yes.
Or not? I don't know if it's by Steve Miller, but yeah, Flesh
Flesh
Weaver.
Yeah, right.
Weaver.
So she bids the 6 Warforged to follow her in, and all 12 of us begin following her after the other 6 pick up their weapons. And we try to make our way in. Gurs and Thrax end up getting inside past the gates.
Mhm.
When the gate was up at some point, and they yelled attack, and we rolled initiative.
Right.
And so we start fighting, and she yells, "Send out the rejects!"
Yeah.
And I think these gates open, and a big, very, very close combat ensues.
Yeah, so you're in this sort of vestibule. It's a double gated vestibule. There are a whole bunch of doors on either side, but then there's a front door and then a vestibule door inside, and it is very tight. It's a very tight space, especially for as many player characters as we had and as many enemies as we had. So there was a lot of jockeying and moving. Also, we were out in the wilderness, and I didn't have a gridded map, so we used distances rather than grids, which made it even more complex and difficult. Yeah.
But the 2 teams worked surprisingly well together, all 12 of these people. It could be because we were controlling half of them. And it was really fun because you got to play 2 characters. You had to think about what you're doing and then what your counterpart was doing. And Vakias ended up summoning his trees.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were using the trees to teleport from outside of the structure to inside of the structure,
right,
and get everyone in so nobody got trapped outside.
Right. Yep. And these rejects were sort of like failed flesh experiments that were warforged, that were sort of like not very well stitched together flesh creations. Sort of like if you could imagine a robot zombie that's covered with rotting flesh.
Pretty scary and unsettling.
Yes.
Yeah,
Especially since now we were fighting inside
we're trapped in.
we're trapped inside a huge double door shut and all these gated doors.
Yeah.
And
High ceilings.
we don't really know what we've just broken into, but we know there's a whole bunch of locked doors.
Yep.
And after the last enemy falls, we hear a voice on the other side of this. There's 2 double doors, the entrance, and then double doors, and then a bunch of small doors. And on the other side of the double doors, we hear a voice say, "Send in the scorpions."
Mm-hmm.
And that was the last time we played.
Yeah, I remember you guys did investigate some of the hallways, or not the hallways, but the doors on the sides, and one of the doors opens, and you see this mechanical sort of spidery thing with a humanoid face, kind of like sort of crawling around the edge of the door, and that was the end. That was the last thing that we have done in our campaign
in 11 weeks.
Yeah,
It's been so long.
we
I know
send
it-
in the
not that I've
scorpions.
been
It's
counting
been
or
ringing,
anything.
echoing in our ears.
wanted to do this recap just to get us all back up to speed with the whole entire thing, but it at the sacrifice of resolving this encounter that you've been in stasis in frozen animation for 11 weeks. So
Which is probably going to be a TPK, and then we're going to have to start a new campaign.
we'll see.
The only
You-
character will be Celestine.
You have 12 allies. Yeah, that's right. I mean, you have 6 allies, and you have 12 total characters to beat these flesh scorpions. We
We haven't even gotten inside the forge yet.
haven't even gotten inside the forge. You're just in the vestibule. I have to translate what we did at an actual table to Roll20, but our next live stream will be the continuation of Send in the Scorpions. And
We'll be on to actual gameplay
yeah,
once again.
Send in the Scorpions! We'll be on to actual gameplay, and everyone should be up to speed and have the ability now to catch themselves up. And we won't have to do a recap like this again.
So well, from now on, when we go live, you can feel free to watch when we're live, or go through the archives and rewatch them after the fact. But if any point in time, if you're jumping into a live and you don't know what's going on, you can go back and watch the recaps or watch the previous lives that you missed. Everything will be living on the YouTube channel.
Yep, exactly. And with that, I think we will wrap it up. There probably will be some gaps to fill in as we continue to play, but in real time, we'll be able to catch ourselves up and do a little bit of meta-analysis in the moment as it comes. So anyway, thank you from House to 20. Signing off, and we'll catch you next time.
All right. See ya.
Later.
Good night.